welcome back to another community space just to hang out with some friends, hang out with some NFT degens. I mean, some of them are more degen than others, but all of them do love their online internet, shitcoins with pictures in front of them. So there we go. My name is Colin Lieb. I'm happy to host everyone here. Just go ahead and retweet the top tweet or also very much invited to add comments to the bottom right-hand corner. You can just click on that speech bubble and get right into a bit of a conversation with us today. Look, I'm very happy to have two wonderful guests here today with us. We have Barcella and we have Max Norris. I'm going to give both of you guys ample time to introduce yourself, and I'll also do it for you just to pump up the energy level in here. Love to see it. Again, we have Barcella, who's an avid collector, an active member in the CryptoPunks community, Discord, everything. You share insights, news, and updates. And I also noticed that you're a fellow Canadian. So always nice to meet a fellow Canadian out there. GM to you.
Thanks so much for the invite.
Yeah, nice to have you on, mate. We also have Max. I already know Max. Nice to have you on too. He's also a CryptoPunk enthusiast, regular on Twitter Spaces and pretty much anywhere where dope shit's happening. So yeah, aside of the market analysis and non-financial financial informations, I'm gonna definitely be picking your brain today too. Nice to have you on too, mate.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, it's great to be on with you again. I appreciate you hosting the space. And Barcella, it's great to be on here as well with you. I'm excited to talk punks.
Yeah, same with you, Max.
Absolutely. So just to maybe get into the topic of CryptoPunks, I'm going to round out a couple facts and figures for the listeners, and I'll also definitely want to get into the price chart on NFTPriceFloor.com. Woo! There we go. Maybe a bit loud. Sorry about that one. We are right now trading at 52.75 ETH, down 1.7% on the day, but up luckily from the 45 ETH bottom that was made on April 23rd. So over the past 2-3 weeks, we're in a slight uptrend again. The interesting point that I really want to also get into with you guys later in the space, that the volumes have been massively up ever since CryptoPunks really started trading on Blur. So that's an interesting paradigm shift, I'd say. Over the past, I don't know, maybe year roundabouts, the volumes hadn't been that high. So also volatility had been down massively over like September until March. I know NFT Statistics was massively reporting on that, like no 10% shift in price for almost 40 weeks or something like that. So the true stablecoin of the NFT industry. But yeah, obviously CryptoPunks around for quite a while. The OGs in the space, got to give them props, got to give them credit. Created by Matt Hall and John Watkinson back in 2017. And I mean, you guys really kind of led the forefront of maybe how PFPs can be seen, what they can embody, and also just like the quality that these punks were at the time, like absolutely mind-boggling. So I guess without further ado, Max, Barcella, I'm just going to invite you guys both to maybe talk about what you've been doing with CryptoPunks and what your interaction with CryptoPunks has been, and then maybe your own two way on the matter at the moment. Barcella, please.
Yeah, sure. Again, so thanks for having me on again, Colin. This is super cool. My background, I guess, with punks is it's sort of the first community that I got involved with when I joined the space a few years ago, and I think initially the art just really resonated with me for some reason, and I'm not someone with a big art background. I have a like athletic background primarily, and I'm an accountant, so I just never really got heavy into art. And so it's just funny that sort of mid or like I guess early COVID, like sort of right when COVID started getting heavy, I was looking for things to take up my time while I was hunkering down at home. Canada took it COVID pretty seriously. So a lot of people were just kind of like staying in their houses. And yeah, I started to look hard on OpenSea and just understand what projects were dropping. And then I got into Discord and started talking to, the Punks channel was completely open at that point, and that was nice because, in hindsight, I wouldn't have had access to some of the individuals that I got access to, who kind of brought me into that space and taught me about punks and taught me about, what soon was art blocks to me, sort of like the second biggest thing I collected. And so having open access to the punks Discord was how I got sort of my first sort of alpha, by meeting some people, and just forming relationships there. And so, first exposure was that, and I guess kind of it's, a first impression thing to an extent, and then the love of the art, as I say. And the community is amazing, and I have a lot of friends in that space now. Went to NFT New York City, and got to physically meet some of those people, which is like a really beautiful experience, because again, like, you have these purely digital relationships with people that are amazing people, and you know that they're real, but you don't get to meet them for a while in some cases, and then you get to meet them, and that's just like an absolutely amazing experience. So yeah, that's kind of like my background with punks. And then, I started flipping floor punks when, they were pretty easy to flip, when the floor was like, 15 or 10 or 15 ETH. And, overnight, like, you could make an ETH here and there. And then I worked my way up to a hoodie, which is now kind of my forever PFP, and got my kids punks. So my 3-year-old has a punk, my 1-year-old has a punk. Yeah, it's something that, that's kind of my outlook on it, kind of my background, at least, and how I got where I got in terms of my introduction to the NFT space was through punks primarily, and then art blocks. Yeah, maybe pass it over to Max. He can sort of introduce, I guess, if that's what you want him to do, about his punk exposure, or am I missing something here?
No, that's great. That's great. Cool. You're doing great. I always like to stalk my speakers and my guests, so I definitely rated your wallet and found some other absolutely amazing pieces in your collection too. So yeah, I definitely want to congratulate you on that very, very clean hoodie punk. Honestly, some of them look better than others, and I definitely love yours a lot. So congratulations on that, and also the other two punks, and the Fidenza and X copy, and some other art blocks. Look, I don't have to tell you that you have an insane collection. Just congratulations from my side. And as I always like to say, you come you come to crypto for the money, but you stick around for the people. And I think your story really did resonate a lot with with that mindset too. So, Marcella, nice to have you on. I'll definitely ask the same question over to Max too. So, Max, just free for all, whatever you want to say about your own story coming into CryptoPunks and everything.
Thanks. Yeah. So I come from we had a mix up last time, but I come from the sports card world. So basketball cards, baseball cards, that kind of thing. That market did some crazy things in 2019, 2020, and early 2021. And I signed up for a Top Shot account, but never did anything on Top Shot because I quite frankly thought it was stupid. Still do. And then the Beeple sale happened, and I feel like my story is similar to many other stories where that was kind of the head turning point in time. And I surveyed kind of the NFT landscape, came across punks, clearly, the one to own. And so I sold a bunch of my sports cards to buy the punk that's currently my PFP, and just been riding the wave since, just holding. I was also snooping Barcella's wallet as well, which is insane. But I did notice that we kind of got our forever punks around the same time, that like late April 2021 period. So that was just a little bit of a coincidence there. But yeah, so yeah, recently my 2-year anniversary for the punk was last week, and I totally missed it because I'll be here for at least another decade. So what is this, the 2-year anniversary mean? But yeah, that's kind of my story. And yeah, excited to talk about punks.
Yeah, love it. As you guys can see, we have two very OG people here in the space. So I definitely just want to, before we dive into like what CryptoPunks are right now going on and everything, wanted to ask you what made you choose punks over pretty much any other NFTs at the point in time when you came into the markets? Because when I came in, like punks were slightly out of my price range. But apes were like the hot shits, and I'm very happy to say like that was my second NFT I ever bought, pretty much, and it's been serving me quite well. But I know for a fact that a lot of people who came into the space at the same time frame chose, I don't know, like the shittiest NFT projects possible. So, what saved you from that fate, I guess?
In my case, I think it was, the art resonated with me. I look, and maybe it's a connection to my adolescence and myself as kind of, at a point in time when I probably considered myself a punk, and more importantly, my parents and or teachers probably considered me a punk. And so, I think, um, if you have a colorful background or a colorful adolescence, or maybe you're just someone who is a rebel at heart, I feel like you connect with the project immediately because it's just a bunch of punks. And furthermore, when you start looking through the catalog of available punks, you see generally something that kind of, I'll say looks like you, because that's kind of what I think I tried to do subconsciously, was find something that like was, something that was familiar to me, and that would maybe be able to resemble what I would look like in kind of a pixelated fashion. Um, and so I think it was just a really smart project that was released in 2017, because it does cater to everybody. And that's kind of what resonated with me, I think, subconsciously, was that it just kind of had like almost like a nostalgic feeling, because I was a punk. I was a super punk ass mofo as a teenager. I was terrible. I'm surprised I'm still alive in some cases. My dad still jokes that he's surprised I'm not in prison. So I had a colorful background, and I think that's why it resonates with me at the end of the day. So
Sick. Started from the bottom, now we here. Love to hear the story. Sounds awesome. I guess we probably need a second space for that entire topic. So just maybe the same question over to Max. What got you into CryptoPunks, and kind of also what makes them special in your opinion? And why didn't you ape into the latest shit NFT at any random point in your NFT collecting journey?
Well, I will say, when Bored Apes were just came out on the scene 2021, I when they were like 400 or $500, I was looking at them and I was like, I kind of want one, but also I already have this punk, and what would I do with the ape? The ape's just going to sit in my wallet. So I didn't end up buying one. Clearly a mistake. Uh, Probably the biggest mistake on the journey so far, but it is what it is. Um, but ultimately, like I agree with Barcelo. The art itself, they're just the pixel art. The they're so simple, but they're also so complex. Once you kind of start viewing a lot of them and all the different traits and so on and so forth, the story, the fact that they were created with kind of like pure intentions and not in the mania of everything, not created for, you know, the money, I guess. And I guess that's what I look for a lot in NFTs. Like what was created out of just pure love and pure creativity. And punks are certainly probably the best example of that in the space. Obviously made in 2017. Um, but ultimately, I guess to kind of summarize why I, I'm into punks is I'm going to quote probably the most famous punk owner on Twitter, Jay-Z, who's still sporting his punk as a profile picture. And in an interview years ago, this quote kind of stuck with me. He said, "Would you rather be a trend or would you rather be forever?" And ultimately, I guess that's why I just love punks.
That's a tough act to follow. Thank you very much, Max. I need to at least quote Nietzsche next time I'm speaking. So, yeah, definitely. Like that's. I think that also kind of answers my next question on the value proposition. What utility do you guys see in that? And if anyone has ever listened into the Metaverse podcast with the Bored Ape founders, they also had John and Matt on, and those two guys, they're so genuine, and I really resonated with that specifically. They do seem like the type of individuals who just create dope shit because it's cool to create dope shit. So yeah, Max, 100%. Barcella, please.
So in terms of the utility, from my perspective, I think I love punks because there's no expectation of any utility, and the utility is the love of the yard. It's a love of the community. It's the love of the fact that this is the OG project that will never be surpassed, in my opinion, from that perspective. And so, I think that carries a lot of weight. The you know the yeah, I mean, what else can I say here? The fact that punks, um, don't have any kind of expected utility, supports a community that is more resilient to the volatility of the overall space. Because if you don't expect this growth in something that's tangible, or something that is like tokens and things that add value, like actual explicit value to your asset, and your only expectation is the long hold, because that's, in my humble opinion, the true plan for anybody with a punk, in my mind, is long hold. And that's why I don't care about floor pricing. I don't care about the volatility, the fact that punks were, for example, around 60 ETH for like 8 months, as you said, and then they've been sort of tapering downwards, and then sort of back up a little bit, and so on. That doesn't really phase me. A, because I love the community. B, because I love the art. C, because this is a long-term hold for me. This is something that I'm passing on to my kids. This is something, and I think our plan is to get into this a little later, but I have the three Tiffany pendants for my three punks, which I'm super blessed to have. And those are all sort of part of my long-term plan, and therefore, it's sort of like looking at the stock market in some senses. I mean, you have no real period of time that's 10 years or longer in history where the stock market has ever lost. And so as long as you stick to a long game, you're probably going to win. And that's why I believe in punks. I think that's the best long game in the space right now, and probably will be, forever. So if you do have one, ignore the volatility, ignore the floor price, in my mind, and just focus on the long game.
Obviously, always easier said than done. Our ape minds do, and I'm not saying this from a bake perspective, our literal ape brains always kind of throw a wrench into that kind of thinking. But I guess everyone can just kind of cut themselves a slice off of Barcella on that thought, because if you're in this space and just trying to flip stuff, I think you're still missing out, quote unquote, on the long-term enlightenment that NFTs and crypto can offer, and also kind of tranquility once you understand like where this potential technology can actually catapult us in the long run. All right, I'm probably getting ahead of myself a slight touch here. So I just wanted to bounce an sentiment off of you both and kind of ask if you agree or disagree. Punks are kind of the Bitcoin of NFTs. They're slow and unchanging. They're only art. They're kind of these digital rocks that don't transfer like infinite amount of utility, versus apes and a lot of other of the newcomers who are like fast and always trying to pivot and very tech focused and always trying to deliver more and more and more, kind of like ETH. So like, do you guys vibe with that, or do you just say, that's just some ETH maxi statement here from the freaking Bored Ape on stage here?
No, that's kind of a comparison that I think some of us have heard over the last year or so, that Bitcoin or punks are BTC and apes are ETH. And I like on the surface, I think that that's a correct comparison, but I kind of think of it a little bit differently. I think, and with the fungible stuff, it's really just Bitcoin and ETH at the top, and then there's everything else currently. That's how I view it. Whereas NFTs, like the pool is so much broader. There's so much more out there, and so I don't know if it's right to just kind of pick two projects and compare them to Bitcoin and ETH. My kind of framework, if we're making that comparison, is Bitcoin or the Bitcoin of NFTs. It's just like all of the top tier art stuff. So that's punks, art blocks, Fidenza, Squiggles, Ringers, Xcopy, Beeple, etc. That I kind of would lump all that together and say that's kind of the Bitcoin of NFTs. And then with ETH, clearly that's the utility driven projects, obviously apes. But then I would also kind of include like Azuki or CloneX, or that's just how I would separate those two pools of projects: the store value side and then the utility side.
Barcelo, you want to also take a shot at this one?
I mean, it's well said by Max. I agree. I think it's probably not fair to just categorize the two, but I think generally speaking, it's probably a fair comparison if you think about the fact that there's only so many Bitcoins, there's only so many punks. There is no external utility or tangible utility to either of the two, so there are a lot of similarities and parallels. And then again, the apes and the ecosystem surrounding them is one of the most, utility forward projects out there. So I think that's a fair comparison when you were to compare that to, ETH and, there's some parallels there. So yeah, it's a fair comparison. I think Max nails it on the head though with the fact that you have to give some more sort of power to the projects that are outside of just those two. And I mean, I would have thrown like Moonbirds in there a few months ago, but they've kind of spiraled down to something that I think a lot of people are contentious with. But either way, there's a handful of really good projects out there beyond the first two that obviously we're discussing here.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part in my head, at least, about NFTs. A lot of them seem to have like a very prosperous future, but it's still very much undecided. We're still a very young industry. And just to build off of that point that like I think both of you guys are making, CryptoPunks really are one of the only assets that actually survived from the 2017 to the 2020 bull run mania. So with coins, I'd usually say like if they're a 2-cycle coin and they can prove that they're like volatile in both cycles, then that's something that really gives them a lot of at least more confidence that they'll come back again in the next cycle again too. And most NFTs, let's be honest, they're probably going to go to absolute zero. You probably have to pay people to take them off your wallet, so probably even minus zero. But whatever. So I guess my question for you guys is, CryptoPunks have been surging lately relative to the market. I'd say they've been kind of stable and then surging. Obviously, the drop off of the Blur bid floor was kind of harsh, but all in all, I think you can definitely say that they're one of the more stable assets right now. So why do you guys think that is the case? I mean, floor price right now is 52 ETH roundabouts. Do you think that's like an attractive price to buy in, or do you think that CryptoPunks will emerge stronger into the next bull market if there is a next bull market?
If there is a next bull market, well, I mean there's a lot of FUD in that statement.
Got
to keep it open, mate. Got to keep it open.
I'm not discounting the possibility. It's just funny. In terms of the recent movements in punk prices, obviously they ran up a couple months ago to like 70 or 75 ETH, and then shockingly Ryan Carson sold the top. So that was pretty remarkable. And then since then they've kind of, you know, they were down to 50 ETH, and then I think just very, very short term, the reason they went from 50 to 55 last week, this past weekend, pretty sure that lines up pretty well with the whole blur lending protocol that they kind of just released called Blend. And I would never use the service, but I think it's interesting, and I went on Blur just to see how it works. Right, and they have this buy now, pay later feature, and right now you can literally buy a punk for like 1.5 to 2 ETH, and if it appreciates, you sell it and you keep the profit, and you don't really owe anything else. Or you can kind of pay it off over time with interest. But I think in terms of it, the floor going from 50 to 55, and now it's back down to 52, but I think that can mostly be attributed to the Blur thing. I think Barcelo and I would both agree that the super short-term price movements, especially just a couple ETH here and there, really, we're just not super interested in that, because we're long-term players. But yeah, that's kind of the short-term movements and what I think the explanation is. And kind of the second question, whether it's a good long-term entry price, not financial advice, but there have been worse times to buy a punk. And I guess I'll just leave it there.
Non-financial financial advice. Definitely.
I'm of the belief that the PFP dominant world is upon us, and it's only beginning. And metaverses and stuff they're all awful right now, and they're going to take a long time to get where they need to be. But punks are the ultimate PFP, and honestly, there's only 10,000 of them. And when you have something that's so scarce, I mean, like, just think about that from an actual global population perspective. It's such a rounding error in terms of the ratio of the number of punks available to a global perspective is actually crazy when you think about it. So as punks become more and more prominent as a result of the PFP driven world becoming something that's on the forefront of our daily society, and it's more embedded into media and the daily life chain, I guess. Punks are going to run out. That's my outlook. Like, punks are literally going to run out. There's not going to be punks for sale. And when there's no punks for sale, there is no floor price. And when there's no floor price, it becomes insanity in many cases, if this is, what it is going to be, in my opinion, to get a punk, because there's, it's just a matter of bidding and, someone coming in and saying, I want one of these really bad. I've done well in my life. I have $1 billion, and throwing, $10 million on their forever punk. I honestly think, as a result, now is an exceptional time to buy a punk. Not only is the floor price pretty low when you look at the last couple years comparatively, but ETH is pretty cheap when you look at the last couple years comparatively. So if you're ever going to come in with fiat and say, screw it, I'm going to buy something that's going to be a multi-generational investment, in my humble opinion, now's the time. And that's for the reasons of ETH and punk floor being reasonable, and also the fact that there's just not going to be a lot of punks around in the future, because they're going to get bought up. Why? Because guys like Max and I have put them in our vaults, and they're gone, and they're never going to be, surfaced for probably a long time. And there's a lot of people that have already done that, and there's a lot of people that are going to do that, and they're doing that right now. And when there's no more flippers, and that will be, that time will inevitably come. There will be no punks for sale. There will be a time when there are no punks for sale, and that'll be a very, very beautiful time to be a punk owner.
Yeah, I agree with that, Barcelo. But something I wanted to build off what you were saying, with like supply numbers and how that can come into play long term. I was thinking about this recently. So there's 10,000 total, and Yuga owns like 400 of them or 420 something of them. So those are off the market, not for sale. And then you have, I don't know the exact number, and I don't want to spread misinformation, but there's at least a few hundred punks that are just lost forever. People who lost their keys and can't access them. So really, between Yuga and all the lost wallets, you're down to probably a little more than 9,000. And then you take all the people who own punks, who just either own one and aren't selling for a while, or have a few that they really love and aren't selling. There's definitely some thousands there. So you keep kind of running these numbers in your head, and that punk supply really isn't 10,000. I mean, it is, obviously it is, but the amount that are available or potentially available there's not a lot of them. And I think most people in the space can agree that the NFT market is still very, very early on. More and more people are going to come in, more high net worth individuals who want, a digital asset to kind of flex or use as a status symbol or social signaling, and punks are the ones. So I do agree with Barcel that supply crunch will inevitably happen. It's just going to take some time to get there.
Yeah. So you guys are already talking about the burned CryptoPunks. So I've heard multiple numbers floating around on the interwebs, ranging between like 300 that are kind of verified to be lost. But I also heard already numbers up into like 2,500. So just wanted to throw that out there. There's up to, let's put it this way, up to 2,000 punks that are kind of lost forever, that never really got moved. I'm just checking NFT Price Floor too. So there's a wallet with 770 punks. There's one with 422. And both of those wallets, I don't think have had that much activity over the past couple months, years. So it's just interesting to see how these quote unquote OGs, I mean, there's always a lot of shade thrown towards the Bored Apes about bad security and people clicking shady links. There's a lot of punks owners out there that actually lost access to their punks too. Just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, it's definitely deflationary.
But for different reasons.
Yeah,
for very different reasons. Those punk lost them because, back then it was hard to even claim a punk, from what I hear from the real OGs in the space. It was hard to get ETH and to get a wallet and get all set up and to claim your punk. So I think guys lost their stuff because it was like they were on some, their storage key was some external hard drive that got lost when they were moving out of college or something. Nowadays, it's sadly, it's, malicious scams and scammers that are going after. And it's not so much punks anymore because it's more difficult to steal a punk than it is, most other assets. And so that's why I think a lot of Yuga has been targeted. There's a lot of apes have been lost their apes or lost their mutant apes or lost their assets. So that's it's generally different these days. Yeah, the odd person loses their Ledger wallet or something, or loses their seed phrase, and they're like shit and they're fucked, and that happens here and there. But generally speaking, it's malicious attempts at scamming and spam that catches people, sadly, these days.
Yeah, I think that's also, I guess, a story about who is the owner, right? Because obviously nowadays the quote unquote new rich people who get rich off of current NFT pumps are very different people versus those that got into CryptoPunks and actually claimed them way back in the day. So yeah, no shade thrown there. I just wanted to point that out, definitely. So yeah, I guess we can kind of agree that both of them are deflationary simply by more and more of them being thrown out of circulation, forcibly so. One question I have for you guys, because I keep on seeing it also on NFT Price Floor, is just how many unique owners are there actually? And CryptoPunks right now are 3,900, so that's 39% unique ownership. I'll grab the numbers for apes and for some other big collections too, just to cross-reference there. But I definitely think they're more towards like the 50, 60 percentile. So that just means that a lot less people own a lot more punks comparatively to Bored Ape, Mutant, CloneX, Moonbirds, all of the other top collections. So I guess my question to you guys, isn't that a potential like
I mean,
bearish?
keep in mind, there's those vacant or those accounts that have like 700 and 400, and those sway that calculation significantly, right? Because those, if there's 700 lost punks in a wallet, that's obviously going to sway that average pretty significantly. Whereas I don't think there's really any like truly lost BAYC assets like apes or mutant apes. I mean, there might be a few, but it's definitely not like it is with punks. So I think that can explain a chunk of it. And then, I mean, in my case, I look at myself, I have 3 forever punks. I'm not going to sell them. So I'm right on that nose in terms of 33%, right? I am responsible for that statistic in all honesty because I am that statistic. So it's, some people like myself, I guess, who hodl a few. And then I think the real driver, though, is you just have like those 1,000 punks that are lost and that are owned by like a few accounts. In some cases, like you say, there's like 2 or 3 dominant accounts, and those 2 or 3 dominant accounts throw that number off pretty significantly. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely fair.
oh, sorry, Colin.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say, I do think that the kind of the unique ownership issue, the consolidation issue, well, clearly, I think it's a little bit of a concern long term, and not that I don't. How do I phrase this? It just it goes into kind of my, if I had a pros and cons column, it goes into my cons column, and I don't think it's going to be an issue long term. Even if it is, I think it gets resolved. But if you do look at punks, and I kind of view punks and squiggles in similar ways, different reasons but similar ways, and both of those have there's many accounts, wallets that hold hundreds of them, and many that hold tens of them. But ultimately, you shouldn't own a punk or you shouldn't own a squiggle if you don't think that there's going to be significantly more buyers and more interest, more demand for them years down the road. And so that, obviously, that's the bet that we take. That's the bet that I'm taking, is that the demand will just, again, it's going to outpace the supply, even though there's there's a number of wallets that hold a lot of them. And I actually do think, I guess it's maybe a little bit of a prediction, but some of those wallets that own many punks will ultimately end up donating them to museums. I think that'll happen, and maybe that's a silly thought, but you've already kind of seen it once with a big a chunk of his collection. Cosimo made a donation to, I'm not sure, I think it's called it was the LA Contemporary Art Museum. And I do think that's maybe one way that the issue will be kind of resolved. But ultimately, more people will be buying. There'll be a lot more demand for them in the future, and so I don't think the unique ownership problem is going to last over time. But certainly, it's an issue when multiple wallets have hundreds, and when eventually some of those wallets are going to be looking to sell. But I think that those owners of the wallets are smart, and they'll wait for the proper time to do that when there's enough demand, as to not oversaturate the market.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess while we're on the topic of just future bull runs and supply and demand, I think everyone here in the audience, at least, would love to hear your thoughts on kind of what's going to be catalyzing the next NFT and obviously also crypto bull run. Without any certainty, I know this is like tea leaf reading. What do you guys think will be catalyzing the next bull run, and which type of collections or which collections do you think will have the strongest narrative and probably also the strongest price appreciations? So I see Barcel already wanting to answer that. Go ahead, mate.
Sure. I mean, I think that Max and I are just taking turns breathing. So yeah, I'll pop in first. Yeah, I think it's probably Pepe token, Turbo coin, and what else is going to drive the next? No, honestly, I'm obviously kidding, but I I'm a believer that, and I think we see this to an extent with crypto that there's a major correlation between the general markets, like the fiat markets, the stock markets, and the way that those markets ebb and flow, and then just the actual price of cryptocurrency, so Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then I think when you see a borderline recession that a lot of the world's going through right now, it's not surprising to see NFT purchases are at a low for the last 2 years, and the actual crypto, coin side of the market, like the actual currency. I mean, sure, there's been some recovery in terms of ETH and Bitcoin, but they're pretty flat overall, I think, if you were to look at it for the last few years. So, yeah, I'm a believer that what will drive the next bull run is going to be the stabilization of our economy, and that's probably the CPA in me that does see that. Sure, decentralization is awesome, and I'm a firm believer that that has to happen to an extent. But I'm also a big believer in the financial markets, and so I think that as long as there's people that are heavily investing a lot of their equity in those markets and still dabbling a good portion in crypto, they're gonna probably be fairly parallel to one another. So I think when the markets continue to increase and surge, and interest rates come back down and people start spending more, again at some point, I think that's going to correlate with another bull run in the NFT world, because people are going to have the confidence to take that risk in their mind and start throwing some more money into crypto.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, we still have to face the reality that most metaverse purchases, NFTs included, are going to come out of the discretionary spending pile, not the mandatory spending pile. So yeah, I guess when the Fed kind of turns around, and I think only today or yesterday we saw the 0.25 rate hike again. So for now, I guess bonds are the way to go, the boring ass bonds, but you have to do what the market is telling you to do. And once they pivot, once something breaks, that might kind of lead into the last, like maybe fifth of the bear market, and then also fuel the recovery rally. Is what I'm hearing here from Barcella, at least. Max, do you want to add on to that? Because we do need some hope for the NFT market.
I guess if we look at kind of the last bull market for NFTs, obviously the economy was in much better shape. You had crypto was appreciating, but then I guess two or three like very key moments in the NFT world, brought a lot of people into the NFT market, and I guess the first was Top Shot, and the second was maybe just like punks and apes in general, really kind of making noise. And then I guess you had the Beeple sale, and maybe I got the order of those two mixed up, but I do more specifically Top Shot and the Beeple sale. I feel like those two events in particular brought a lot of people into the NFT market, myself included. And so I'm not sure if the next bull market is going to be catalyzed by a specific project or big sale like the last bull was. That obviously there's no way of knowing that, but I do think there's not going to be an NFT bull run without a crypto run, and I do think it's just naturally going to follow crypto unless there is like a big new project or ecosystem that comes along and inspires people, and brings in thousands of I'll call them normies, for lack of a better term. But that's my opinion. I really don't know what's going to kick off the next bull market, but I don't think it's going to be within the next 6 to 8 months, and more so the next 12 to 15 months.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I'm just going to lean way out of the wagon here and try and do a price prediction, because I definitely do see some more bearishness in not only crypto but probably also NFTs. I do think that we can see both CryptoPunks and Bored Apes trade just above that one node price of 32 ETH. I definitely think that that'd be kind of the worst case scenario. Best case scenario is just we kind of scrape the lows again and then kind of bounce from there. But yeah, I guess there's a couple other more market force that I would really like to get into talking, specifically around Blur and what they've been able to. I mean, their product has been well received. Their token incentivization program is very actively being used and milked. So I guess my question for you guys: do you think that these kind of tools will help us come out of the bear market, or do you actually think that these financialized aspects of NFTs nowadays are actually hurting not only price but maybe also sentiment and everything that comes along with that? Just going to throw that out there.
I don't think it's really either, to be honest. I think they're just temporary entertainment. And for those who want to capitalize on it, by all means. And, for those who, want to get absolutely hammered, like Franklin and I forget the Maki Big Brother or whatever, and both of them disappeared for a while because they had to go settle their loans with their banks. Then you got to be, careful, which way you go. So, I stay away from that stuff because I don't want to be, messing around with. Uh,
All right. Do you guys hear him?
what kind of benefit there's going to be? You guys hear me still? Sorry.
Now I can hear you again. You were cutting out
Sorry.
there for a
So
second.
I was just saying more or less that it's not my game because I'm not really into unknown token allocations for burning ETH, and that's what I think was going on. And there's some big players involved in that, and yeah, I think it's almost entertainment during a bear market, and I don't think something like that is going to trigger the introduction of an actual bull market. I think it's larger factors, as I mentioned earlier, that are going to be the macro, factors that actually are the underlying triggers for that transition into a bull. And I just think that the Blur and so on. I mean, hey, it's a successful business in its own right, I guess, and there's a lot of people that play that game, as you guys had alluded to, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be Blur that is going to be the permanent catalyst that sends us into a bull.
Yeah, I think pretty much everything has been said there. Max, do you want to tack on anything else? I have one more important question lined up for you guys that I definitely want to get to. All right, I'll take that as yeah, please.
I'll just add something real quick. Like I agree with Barcelo. Blur is not going to be leading the charge for any price appreciation, but I do think kind of if we want to label it NFT finance, I do think that's definitely here to stay, and Blur will always, I guess, get credit for maybe not being the first to do it, but to being the most popular platform where that occurs. And I do think overall long term that it's going to be healthy for the market, but short term it's just choppy waters, and there's a lot of issues with those big whales and all the farming and et cetera. It's kind of a mess, but long term I think Blur will be a healthy thing for the market. I just don't think that the next bull run that's not where it's going to come from.
Yeah, definitely. More people allocating into the space, being willing to hold the risk of the underlying assets. I think that's what's really needed. And more people just kind of being comfortable also with that idea. I definitely think that COVID kind of helped in 2020 until 22, simply because the loose monetary policies, but also a lot of people just sitting around at home, dicking around, wondering what they should do. And it really did kind of capture the zeitgeist, just to use a German word there for 1 second and to sound really smart. All right. I guess the last question for you guys is A, surrounding the metaverse, and B, kind of what a digital identity itself could be, or where you guys see that space going. Because obviously, like, the future that Yuga Labs right now is laying out is massively focused on digital identity, a metaverse, and like everyone get together and have a lot of fun together. Do you think that like CryptoPunks will continue to be the number one community everyone aspires into? And maybe also just basing off of that, there's a lot of luxury brands that are kind of trending into the into this space, from LVMH to I think Barcella already mentioned earlier, the Tiffany bracelets, pendants. Sorry. Do you guys think that there's like maybe a traditional company out there that might kind of co-opt our movement in any point of way? Maybe just quick question there. Sorry.
There's also those horrible Gucci necklaces that you can't forget about, those Coda necklaces. Um, that I'm not a big fan of those Coda necklaces. Yeah, so I think in terms of the metaverse, I mean, I can't imagine myself hanging out in the metaverse and having conversations like as my CryptoPunk. I will probably never do that. Maybe with a VR headset on or something. But I don't know. I'm an '80s baby. I grew up playing ball hockey on the streets of Canada all day long until the street lights came on. I just can't imagine socializing in like primarily or in a significant way in a metaverse fashion. But I'm also, a 40-year-old man, and so I'm not the future generation of this space. I mean, I might hang on to it. I might be a 75-year-old guy with my hoodie CryptoPunk and think I'm cool, but I'm definitely not, the future of who's going to be utilizing the space. Now, my children are, and do I think I want to bet on the fact that having an OG punk NFT as your potential PFP, if your PFP is that meaningful because you sit on your tablet for 14 hours a day, yeah, I think I'm going to bet on that. I think I'm going to bet on that. It sucks, and it's the hollowing of the human soul, this, focus on tablets and like screens and metaverse and all that. And this is like an old man talking. I sound like a freaking 40-year-old man talking, and that's what I am. But honestly, I kind of know it's inevitable. I know it's where this is probably going. I'm going to bet on that. I do love the art, and I bought it for the art, but I think in terms of the bet, that's the bet. And so, yes, I do think that having a punk in a metaverse is going to be very significant down the road, and that's what I'm betting on.
Dope. Max, please.
Well, Barcella really channeling his inner boomer takes there. Just kidding. I'm a I'm a late '90s kid, so maybe I have a slightly more open outlook on the metaverse. But even I really wouldn't. I don't see myself spending significant amounts of time in VR. I think AR is much more interesting, but I'm not necessarily sure how punks kind of weave in there with that. But I think maybe, yeah, I don't really know how I was going with that, but I think AR is much more interesting than VR. Not sure how punks weave into that. I agree with Barcelo that I didn't, not at all did it cross my mind to buy a punk because of some future VR, application or etc. Bought it for the art because I like to own it, and that's that. It will be interesting to see. On a side note, something that Colin mentioned, will be interesting to see if kind of Yuga continues to partner with some significant brands with punks like they did with Tiffany's, because ultimately I think for more and more people to really understand what punks are and to appreciate punks, you're going to need to see punks with these luxury brands, because that's really the only way that outsiders are going to get it. And so very cool that Barcella has those Tiffany's pendants. Those are grails for sure.
Tiffany Maxi, Gucci hater, Barcella.
I like Gucci. I personally just don't think that those pendants really do the brand any justice. Like they're just not like original. There's nothing that sort of customizes it to your say Coda or Ape or anything. I just think that they could have put a better effort into making something that was more sentimental and more custom to the holder. That's just my opinion.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And I also think that we need to build up a healthy immune system against trad fi, and not trad fi, but traditional companies coming in and just co-opting the NFT space for either their money or some quick clout. So I definitely appreciate like pushback on bad NFT collections or whatever. Look, if you guys enjoyed this space here today, then I definitely recommend following our wonderful speakers of the day, also following the NFT Price Floor account. But before I let you guys go, I am not 100% in the know about this, so I'm just going to ask the experts here. There is a quote-unquote CEO of CryptoPunks. And as I'm just found out, Barcella once was the CEO of CryptoPunks, and as such, also the icon on NFT Price Floor, the website. So, just maybe a quick question to Barcella over there: what does it mean to be the CEO of CryptoPunks? How do you become that? And quick shout out to the cigarette account that's also in the audience there. See ya.
So just real quick. So the SIG token is a token that was created by the community by an individual named OX Tycoon, who is a zombie holder, a very, very intelligent dude, part of the community, great guy. He developed the token, and you need to essentially utilize the token to buy out the current CEO to become the CEO. So I did that about 45 days ago, and then a guy named Beautiful Punks, or who now calls himself Beautiful NFTs, bought me out about a week and a half ago. It's a lot of fun. If you have a punk, there's a chance that the 100,000 SIG was never claimed, so you can go and check on the SIG website. Just go to the Twitter page, and you can sort of connect to the SIG limo site and check your balance there if you have any. It's a free claim then, or just go buy some. It's a cool Discord-based community. I'm pretty active there. And so I'm not the CEO anymore. That's how quickly it happens. It was a lot of fun while I was there. Anybody on this call could hear this right now. Go buy, I think it's like 6 million SIG and buy out beautiful NFTs or whatever his name is, who's a pretty I'd say notorious individual in the punks community. I don't think he's allowed in the punks Discord at this point. I'm pretty sure he was banned. I'll leave it at that. For people to do their own research at the end of the day. But So, anyways, it's a cool little token that hopefully, it's actually grown a lot over the last week and a half. I know the new CEO bought a bunch of the token himself, which of course drove the value up, and then some others claimed and so on. So lots going on there. I say we, but the token is partnered with Forever Punks Marketplace, which is a marketplace that is about to, or actually has just opened up for bidding, and was built by a great guy based out of Europe that I have a relationship with. And so, there's a collaboration going on there between SIG and Forever Punks, and I believe the new CEO is creating his own marketplace. So lots of activity with SIG.
Love it. Love it. Just had to look it up. 6 million SIG tokens right now are coming in at $2,382 without slippage, of course, because the trading volume is minuscule. But love to see it. Barcella, love to see these grassroots projects. And honestly, when I came into the space, I always was looking up to punks and always thinking like, oh, one day maybe I'll be able to buy one. Never got around to it, mainly simply because if I had ever sold my ape, I just know I would have had to pay so much taxes that I couldn't have afforded the punk anymore. So there you go. Life kind of goes its ways. Max, Barcella, thank you very much for coming by. It was a pleasure speaking to you too. Yeah, it was great fun. We do these community spaces semi-regularly. a couple times a month at least. So go ahead and put that NFT Price Floor alarm on your Twitter account so you won't miss it anymore. I'll also be co-hosting them most of the time. All the time, I don't know. Definitely often. So yeah, Max, thank you very much for coming by. Barcelo, already jumping off. See you soon.
Yep. Thanks for having us, NFT Price Floor, and thanks, Colin, for hosting. Always a great time.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's all about the people. So I'm just going to put on a song, and NFT Price Floor, you can close out the space whenever you feel like it.